My mother wants me to give half my grandmother's apartment to her affair partner's daughter. I said no. Here's what happened. I, 29, never thought I'd be writing something like this, but I need to get it out somewhere. My hands are still shaking from what happened at dinner last night. I feel like I've been conned by my own mother. And the worst part is I should have seen it coming. Let me give you some background. I had what I thought was a normal childhood until I was 14. That's when my parents divorced. It wasn't amicable, not even close. My mother had been having an affair for nearly 2 years with a man from her office. My father found out in the worst possible way. He showed up at her work Christmas party to surprise her and found them together in a coat closet. The image of my father crying in the car on the way home is something I'll never forget. The divorce was brutal. My father was devastated. I chose to stay with him. It wasn't even a question in my mind. At first, my mother had weekend visitation. I'd go to her new apartment. We'd get pizza, watch movies, pretend things were normal. Then the weekends became every other weekend, then monthly. Then something came up so often that I stopped expecting her to show up at all. Within 8 months of the divorce being finalized, my mother married him. The man she cheated with. He had a daughter from his first marriage. She was 18 at the time, 4 years older than me. So suddenly I was supposed to have a stepsister and a stepfather. 2 people I'd never asked for and never wanted. My mother tried to force the whole blended family thing. Awkward dinners where my stepfather would look at me like I was an unwanted guest at my own mother's table. My stepsister barely acknowledged my existence. And honestly, the feeling was mutual. She was 18, heading to college, or so everyone thought, and I was a 14-year-old kid whose world had just collapsed. We had nothing in common except the woman who'd betrayed my father. My stepfather was cold to me from day one. Not overtly cruel. He was too smart for that. Just dismissive. He'd talk over me, forget to set a place for me at dinner, schedule family activities on the weekends I was supposed to visit. It became clear pretty quickly that he saw me as baggage from my mother's previous life. Something to be tolerated until I aged out of the picture. My mother chose to keep the peace with her new husband rather than fight for a relationship with me. I think that hurt more than the affair itself. She'd made her choice and it wasn't me. So, who was there for me during all this? My grandmother. My father's mother. My grandmother saw exactly what my mother was from the beginning. She watched how my mother abandoned me, how she chose her new family over her old one, how she let years slip by without more than a phone call on my birthday. And my grandmother stepped up in a way my own mother never did. We spent weekends together. She taught me how to cook, how to garden, how to be strong. When I was struggling in school because I couldn't focus through the grief and anger, she sat with me every night helping with homework. When I got into my first fight at school, some kid made a comment about my mother running off with another man. My grandmother was the one who talked me down and told me that my mother's choices weren't my shame to carry. She was more of a mother to me than my actual mother ever was. 4 years ago, my grandmother passed away. It was peaceful. She went in her sleep after a long, full life, but it still broke something in me. At the funeral, I couldn't even look at my mother, who had the audacity to show up and stand in the back like she belonged there. When the will was read, I learned that my grandmother had left me her apartment. It's a 2-bedroom place in a good neighborhood worth about $175,000. Now, she left specific instructions. This was for me, not to be shared, not to be sold, not to go to anyone from my mother's side of the family. She even included a letter that said, "I'm leaving you this because I don't trust your mother to take care of you the way a mother should. Consider this my way of making sure someone does." My grandmother left me that apartment because my mother abandoned me. It was her way of saying someone will take care of you even if your mom won't. Now my mom wants me to give half of it to her affair partner's daughter. The disrespect isn't just to me. It's to a dead woman who saw this coming. I moved into the apartment after my grandmother passed. I maintained it perfectly. New paint, fixed up the bathroom, kept it exactly the way she would have wanted. Her sewing kit is still in the closet. Her favorite chair is still by the window. Her photo is on my wall. This place isn't just property to me. It's my grandmother's legacy. It's proof that someone loved me enough to think about my future when my own mother couldn't be bothered. 2 years ago, something unexpected happened. My mother reached out. "I want to fix our relationship," she said. "I made mistakes. I know that. But you're still my daughter, and I want to make things right." I was cautious, very cautious. But part of me, The 14-year-old kid who'd cried herself to sleep wondering why her mother didn't want her anymore. That part of me was desperate to believe people could change. So, I agreed to meet for dinner. The first few meetings were just me and her. We talked about safe topics, sports, work, the weather. She apologized for not being there. She said she had regrets. She seemed genuine. I wanted so badly for her to be genuine. Then the dinners started, including my stepfather. He was civil, more civil than he'd ever been when I was a kid. He asked about my job, complimented my apartment when he visited once, made small talk about the weather. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't openly hostile either. Progress, I told myself. My stepsister, 33F now, started showing up to some dinners, too. I barely knew her. Still don't really. She called her my sister. I've met her maybe 10 times in 15 years. She's 4 years older than me. We shared nothing. No childhood, no memories, no relationship. She's a stranger who happens to sleep in the house my mother chose over me. The dinners were awkward, but I tried. I really tried. When my stepsister talked about her job troubles, I listened politely. When my stepfather made backhanded comments about my father's side of the family, I let them slide. I was trying to give this whole reconciliation thing a real chance. What I didn't realize was that I was being set up. Here's what I learned about my stepsister over those 2 years of awkward family dinners. She's a mess. She never finished college, dropped out after 2 years. She's bounced between part-time jobs her entire adult life. She's 33 years old and still lives with her father and my mother. At 33, her father babies her constantly. She's had bad luck. The economy is hard. She just needs a chance. My mother enables it to keep her husband happy. I've watched this dynamic play out at every dinner. My stepsister complaining about how unfair life is. My stepfather rushing to defend her. My mother nodding along like this is all perfectly normal behavior for a grown woman. What nobody talked about openly, but what I started to suspect was that my stepsister had a gambling problem. Little things gave it away. How she was always broke despite working. How she got nervous when anyone mentioned money. How she disappeared to take calls that seemed to stress her out. I also noticed her eyeing my apartment during the few times she visited. She'd comment on the location, ask about property values in the neighborhood, mention that 2 bedrooms seemed like a lot of space for one person. At the time, I thought she was just awkward at making conversation. Now I know she was casing the place. Last week, my mother invited me to dinner at her house. Just a family meal, she said. Stepfather is cooking your favorite. I should have known something was wrong when my stepfather was nice to me. Not just civil, actually nice. He complimented my dress. He asked about my day with what seemed like genuine interest. He refilled my water glass without being asked. My stepsister was there too, also being friendly. She asked about my job, laughed at my jokes, acted like we were old friends catching up. It was surreal. Then my mother stood up and made a toast. To family unity, she said, raising her glass. To new beginnings. To finally being the family we were always meant to be. Everyone clinked glasses. I had a bad feeling in my stomach. After dinner, we moved to the living room. My mother cleared her throat in that way she does when she's about to make a speech. And then she made her pitch. Sweetheart, we've been talking as a family. Your stepsister is struggling right now. She needs stability to get her life together. Your apartment has 2 bedrooms. We think it would be good if you shared it with her. Let her move in. Help her get on her feet. That's what sisters do. I sat there stunned. I tried to be polite even though my mind was screaming. I don't think that's a good idea, I said carefully. We barely know each other. My stepfather jumped in immediately like he'd been waiting for his cue. That's exactly why you need to bond. Living together will make you real sisters. I tried another angle. The apartment was from my grandmother, my father's mother. It's not really a family property in that sense. My mother's face hardened. I'm your family. My husband is your family. His daughter is your family. Your grandmother is gone. It's time to move forward and stop living in the past. Mother said, your grandmother would be ashamed. My grandmother saw what my mother was. That's why she left me the apartment and not a dollar to Mother's side. Grandma knew. She protected me even after death. And Mother has the audacity to invoke her name. I kept declining, trying to stay calm. That's when my mother dropped the real request. Actually, she said, glancing at my stepfather. We think it would be better if you added her name to the deed. Joint ownership. That way, she has real security, a real investment in making this work. You'd still live there, too. Of course, it would be 50-50. I almost laughed out loud. They wanted me to sign over half my grandmother's apartment, half of $175,000, to a woman I barely knew. You want me to give half my grandmother's apartment to a stranger I've met maybe 10 times? I asked. She's not a stranger, my stepfather said sharply, dropping the friendly act. She's your sister. She's not my sister. She's your daughter. There's a difference. What happened next felt rehearsed. My mother started crying. Actual tears streaming down her face. I knew you'd never accept us, she wailed. You've always hated him. From the very beginning, you've looked down on us. Mother cried when I said no. Rehearsed tears. She's been manipulative for 15 years, but suddenly she's heartbroken that I won't give her husband's daughter my apartment. That's not emotion. That's theater. My stepfather turned on me immediately, his face hard and cold. See what you've done? He demanded, his voice sharp. After everything she's tried to do to bring this family together, you throw it in our faces. After all the dinners, all the effort to rebuild your relationship, this is how you repay her. Something snapped in me. Then 15 years of pain came pouring out. You cheated on Dad, I said, my voice shaking. You abandoned me for 10 years. You let this man treat me like an inconvenience. And now you want me to give my paternal grandmother's apartment, the woman who actually raised me while you were playing house with your new family, to your affair partner's daughter. That's not family. That's robbery. I stood up and grabbed my coat. Where are you going? My mother demanded. Home, I said. To my grandmother's apartment. The one you'll never get your hands on. Update 1. 3 days later. The fallout has been brutal. My mother has been texting me constantly since I walked out. You're tearing this family apart. Your grandmother would be ashamed of your selfishness. I'm still your mother. You owe me respect. You need to apologize to me. I was crying all night because of what you said. My stepfather sent me a message calling me cruel and saying I was traumatizing his daughter with my rejection. As if refusing to give away half my property is some kind of emotional abuse. My stepsister even texted me directly. I thought we were building something real. I guess blood doesn't matter to you. Thanks for showing me where I stand. She called her my sister. I've met her maybe 10 times in 15 years. She's 4 years older than me. We shared nothing. No childhood. No memories, no relationship. She's a stranger who happens to sleep in the house my mother chose over me. The worst part is that my mother has apparently been calling relatives on her side of the family to give them her version of events. I've gotten calls from aunts and uncles I haven't spoken to in years telling me I need to be the bigger person and help family when they're struggling. One of my aunts actually said, "Your mother is just trying to bring everyone together. Would it really be so hard to help your stepsister? She's had a rough time." I told her the full story, the affair, the abandonment, the 15 years of being treated like an outsider in my own mother's life. She got quiet and then said she'd had no idea things were like that. My mother had told her I was the one who'd been difficult and refused to accept her new family. The manipulation is unreal. She's been spinning this narrative for 15 years, painting herself as a loving mother whose ungrateful daughter rejected her. Meanwhile, I was the kid waiting by the window for a mom who never showed up. Update 2. 1 week later. I talked to my father about everything that happened. He was furious, but not surprised. Your mother hasn't changed, he said. She just got better at pretending. This is who she's always been. She'll say whatever she needs to say to get what she wants, and when she doesn't get it, suddenly you're the villain. He reminded me of things I'd forgotten or maybe blocked out. How even before the affair, my mother was manipulative. How she'd twist arguments so that he always ended up apologizing. How she'd promised to change and never follow through. The affair wasn't a one-time mistake. It was the inevitable result of who she was as a person. I also called my paternal grandfather, my grandmother's husband. He's in his 80s now, but sharp as ever. When I told him what my mother had tried to do, he was horrified. Your grandmother left you that apartment specifically because she didn't trust your mother to take care of you, he said, his voice trembling with anger. She knew. She saw what your mother was doing and she wanted to make sure you were protected. She's probably spinning in her grave knowing they tried to give her apartment to that man's daughter. He told me he still has the original letters my grandmother wrote before she passed, including one to my mother that was never sent. In it, My grandmother had written that my mother was a selfish woman who traded her responsibilities as a mother for her own comfort. She saw it all. She knew, and she tried to protect me even after death. Update 3. 2 weeks later. I started digging. Something about this whole situation felt off. Why now? Why this sudden coordinated push to get my apartment? My stepsister had been a mess for years. Why was it suddenly so urgent that she get stability in the form of half my property? I started asking around. I have a friend who works in collections for a financial company. Without giving too many details, she was able to confirm what I'd suspected. My stepsister has significant gambling debts. We're talking around $40,000 to some very unfriendly creditors. Stepsister has $40,000 in gambling debts. That's why they want my apartment, not family unity, asset acquisition. They need something with value to borrow against or sell. My grandmother's legacy reduced to a gambling debt payment plan. But it gets worse. Through some careful conversations with one of my mother's cousins, one of the few who doesn't buy her nonsense, I learned that my mother recently lent my stepsister $15,000 for bills. Everyone in the family knows it actually went to pay off the most aggressive creditor. My mother is financially stressed now because of it. Her retirement took a hit. Her savings are drained and the debts keep coming. Getting my name on the apartment's deed, having me add my stepsister as joint owner, it would solve multiple problems for them. My stepsister could show assets to creditors, potentially borrow against the property, or worst case, force a sale and take half the proceeds. Mom reconnected with me 2 years ago. I thought she'd changed. She hadn't changed. She just needed something. The nice dinners, the talks about fixing things, all set up for this moment. I was being groomed for a con by my own mother. 2 years of dinners, 2 years of I want to fix our relationship, 2 years of pretending to care. All of it was set up for this scheme. Update 4. 3 weeks later. I confronted my mother. I asked to meet her alone, just the two of us at a coffee shop. She seemed hopeful, probably thought I was coming to apologize. Instead, I laid out everything I'd learned. This isn't about family unity, I told her. Your stepdaughter has $40,000 in gambling debts. You gave her $15,000 already and you're financially struggling. You want my apartment because it's worth $175,000 and it would solve her problems and yours. You're not trying to build a family. You're trying to steal my grandmother's legacy to pay for your stepdaughter's gambling addiction. My mother's face went pale. She tried to deny it, but she couldn't. She's never been good at lying when caught, so she switched tactics. Even so, she said. She's struggling. You have more than you need. That apartment is just sitting there. Family helps family. Stop saying family, I said. You stopped being my family when you walked out on Dad. You came back when you needed something. That's not reconciliation. That's a transaction. You don't want a relationship with me. You want access to my assets. She tried to backtrack to salvage something. I do want a relationship with you. Then why did you spend 2 years buttering me up only to ask me to sign over my property? Why didn't you just be my mother for 2 years without an agenda? Because you couldn't. Because this was always the plan? She couldn't answer. Finally, she gave me an ultimatum. If you don't help your sister, don't consider yourself my daughter anymore. She said, if you don't help, don't consider yourself my daughter. I stopped being her daughter at 14 when she moved in with her lover. She just didn't send the memo until it was useful for manipulation. Fine. I accept the terms. I'm not her daughter. Never really was. I looked at her. This woman who was supposed to love me unconditionally, who was supposed to protect me and guide me, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just emptiness. I stopped being your daughter the day you chose him over Dad, I said. You just didn't notice for 15 years. Goodbye. I stood up and left. Blocked her number. Blocked my stepfather. Blocked my stepsister. Haven't looked back. Final update. 1 year later. It's been a year since I walked away from my mother. The apartment is quiet tonight. My grandmother's chair is by the window where she liked it. Her sewing kit is still in the closet. Her photo is still on my wall. Everything is exactly the way she would have wanted it. I have peace now. Real peace. No more awkward dinners. No more forced small talk with people who resented my existence. No more walking on eggshells around a mother who only valued me for what I could give her. My father and my grandfather are my family now. We have dinner together every Sunday. We talk about my grandmother, share stories about her, keep her memory alive. Sometimes I catch my grandfather looking at me with tears in his eyes and he says, "She would be so proud of you." I hope he's right. As for my mother's side, I heard through the family grapevine what happened to them. My stepsister eventually got sued by her creditors. She couldn't pay, couldn't show any assets, couldn't escape. She had to declare bankruptcy. At 34 years old, she has nothing, no property, ruined credit, and still living with her father. My mother and stepfather's marriage is strained. Turns out it's hard to stay together when you can't keep extracting from other people. Without my apartment to bail out his daughter, my stepfather has apparently become difficult. My mother looks older, more tired, in the few photos I've seen online. She made her choice all those years ago and now she's living with the consequences. I went to my grandmother's grave last month. Brought her flowers, sat on the bench nearby like I used to when she was in the hospital. I talked to her like I used to. "They tried to take your apartment, Grandma. Give it to some stranger with a gambling problem. Mom thought she could just erase you. Erase Dad's whole side of the family. Replace it with her new one. But I didn't let her. Your apartment is still mine. Your sewing kit is still in the closet. Your photo is still on my wall. They get nothing." I sat there for a long time. "I miss you. You were more my mother than she ever was. Still are somehow." I stood up, touched her gravestone. "Thanks for protecting me. Even now." I walked away thinking about everything that had happened. I went to those dinners hoping Mom had changed, hoping I could have a mother again. What I got was a con artist who wanted my apartment for her husband's daughter. Some lessons you learn once, some you learn twice. I've learned who my mother is twice now. Third time won't be necessary. I have Dad. I have Grandpa. I have Grandma's apartment and her memory. That's my family. The real one. The one that never asked me to give away my inheritance to prove I belong. The one that just loved me. Turns out that's rare, and I'm done looking for it in places it doesn't exist. My mother sent me a letter 3 months ago. I didn't open it. My dad asked why. "There's nothing in that envelope I need," I told him. "Either it's another manipulation or it's an apology that's 15 years too late. Either way, it doesn't change anything." He nodded. He understood. He's been understanding that woman longer than I've been alive. Sometimes I sit in my grandmother's chair and imagine what she'd say about all this. I think she'd say, "You did good, sweetheart. You protected what matters. Now go live your life." So that's what I'm doing. Living in her apartment with her memory without the mother who didn't deserve either of us. Some inheritances are more than property. My grandmother left me that, too. The knowledge that family isn't blood. It's loyalty. And loyalty goes both ways, or it goes nowhere. Mine goes to the people who earned it. That list is short. That list is enough. Edit. Wow, this blew up. Thank you all for the support and for sharing your own stories. For those asking, no, I'm not going to open the letter. I don't need closure from someone who proved over and over that I was never her priority. My grandmother's apartment is safe. My boundaries are in place, and I'm building a good life. That's all the closure I need. For those going through something similar, trust your instincts. When someone shows you who they are, believe them and protect what matters. Whether that's property, relationships, or just your own peace of mind. You deserve better than people who only see you for what you can give them. Take care of yourselves.